Have you ever worked so hard for something, earned it with everything you had, and then watched someone take it right out of your hands while your own family cheered them on? Keep watching, because what happened next changed my life forever. My name is Jordan Calloway. I am 27 years old, and I work in corporate sales for a mid-sized logistics company in Atlanta. I am not the loudest person in the room. I am not the one who gets celebrated at family dinners. I am the one who shows up early, stays late, and gets the job done quietly while everyone else takes the credit. That is just how it has always been in my family. I have 2 older brothers. Marcus is 31. Wait, I was told not to use that name. Let me be clear. My brothers are Kyle, who is 32, and Brandon, who is 30. Neither of them has ever held a steady job for more than 2 years. Kyle jumps between construction gigs. Brandon calls himself an entrepreneur, which really means he watches YouTube and borrows money. I am the youngest. I am also the only one who finished college, pays my own bills, and has never once asked my parents for rent money. But none of that ever seemed to matter, because in my family the loudest people win, and I had always been too tired to fight. That was about to change. It started on a Tuesday afternoon in late January. I walked through the front door of my parents' house, still wearing my company lanyard and carrying a branded duffel bag from the office celebration. In my hand was a framed certificate and a thick envelope. My company had just closed the biggest client deal of the year. I had led the entire pitch, alone. 3 months of late nights, cold calls, and weekends I never got back. As a reward, my boss handed me 2 Super Bowl tickets in front of the whole office. Not just any tickets, a full VIP package. The room had clapped. My boss had shaken my hand and said, in front of everyone, that I had earned every bit of it. I remember driving home feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Proud. I walked into the kitchen still smiling. And there they were, Kyle and Brandon, standing at the counter, holding my envelope, laughing like they had just found buried treasure. My stomach dropped. Kyle looked up first. He did not even flinch. He just said, casually, like it was nothing, "You weren't actually going to use these, right? You don't even like football the way we do." I stood there frozen, still holding my certificate, still in my work clothes. Brandon shrugged. "Mom said it makes more sense if we go." I turned to my mother. She was standing by the stove, stirring something, not even looking at me. I waited. She finally glanced over and said the words that knocked the air out of me. "They're your brothers, Jordan. Stop being selfish over a game." A game. 3 months of my life. The biggest deal my company had seen in 5 years. A room full of people watching my boss hand me that envelope. And she called it a game. I stood there for a long moment. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, hot and sharp. I wanted to say everything. I wanted to throw the certificate on the counter and scream until someone actually listened. But I did not, because I had learned something growing up in this house. Fighting out loud never worked. Crying never worked. Explaining yourself never worked. It just gave them more material to use against you. So instead, I took a slow breath, looked at both of my brothers, and forced the calmest smile I could manage. "You know what? Fine. Enjoy the game." Kyle grinned. Brandon punched the air. My mother went back to stirring. I picked up my duffel bag, walked upstairs, closed my bedroom door quietly behind me, and sat on the edge of my bed in the dark. Then I whispered to no one in particular. Big mistake. This was not the first time. Not even close. When I was 19, Kyle borrowed $400 from me for a car repair. I never saw a single dollar back. When I asked about it 2 years later, he laughed and said I was being dramatic. Brandon once wore my brand new jacket to a party without asking, spilled something on it, and left it crumpled under his bed. When my mother found out, she told me I should not leave nice things where people could see them. In high school, I won a writing competition and was asked to speak at a regional event. Brandon told his friends he had helped me write it. Nobody corrected him. My parents smiled and said nothing. When I was 22, I lent my car to Kyle for one weekend. He brought it back with a cracked bumper and a tank running on empty. His explanation was 3 words. It just happened. Every single time I was told to let it go. Keep the peace. Be the bigger person. Stop making things difficult. The tickets were just the latest in a long, exhausting list. But as I sat on that bed replaying everything, something shifted. I reached over and opened my work email on my phone. I found the prize confirmation message my boss had sent and started reading it slowly, line by line. That is when I noticed something my brothers had completely missed. The tickets were not just paper seats. The prize package included VIP credentials registered specifically to me. My full name, my work email, my employee ID number. There was a digital verification system tied to a corporate sponsor portal. The hospitality access, the lounge, the pregame experience, all of it was locked behind a credential check that matched the recipient's identity. My brothers had taken a physical envelope, but the Real prize lived in a system they did not even know existed. I read the email 3 times. Then I sat back and thought about everything. Kyle and Brandon had no idea how any of this worked. They saw 2 shiny tickets and a fancy envelope and assumed that was the whole package. They had never worked a corporate job. They had never dealt with sponsor portals or event verification. To them, a ticket was a ticket. To the event security system, a ticket without matching credentials was a red flag. I did not call anyone. I did not confront them. I just saved the email, put my phone face down on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time since I walked through that front door, I was not angry anymore. I was thinking, and when I started thinking clearly, the path forward became very obvious. I was going to let them believe they had won. The next morning, they were insufferable. Kyle was already at the kitchen table scrolling through hotel options, talking loudly about which area of the city was closest to the stadium. Brandon had pulled up a website about celebrity sightings at the Super Bowl and was reading out names like he was already there. My mother made them both eggs. Nobody made me eggs. Brandon looked up when I came downstairs and said, with genuine surprise in his voice, "You're being surprisingly mature about this." I poured myself coffee and nodded. "I just want you guys to have a good time." Kyle grinned. "See? This is why you're the easy one." I smiled back and sat down. I helped them look up flights. I recommended a hotel I had seen in a work travel guide. I even looked up the weather forecast for game day and told Brandon to pack a light jacket. The more helpful I was, the more relaxed they became. That afternoon, I stepped outside and called the event coordinator at my company. I kept my voice light and casual, like I was just asking out of curiosity. "Quick question," I said. "If someone else tries to use my VIP credentials without matching ID, what actually happens?" There was a short pause on the other end. Then the answer came back, and it was better than anything I could have planned myself. I stood in the driveway and smiled at my phone for the first time in days. Over the next few days, Kyle and Brandon turned into a walking, talking embarrassment machine, and they did not even know it. Brandon posted a blurry photo of the ticket envelope on his social media with the caption, "Hard work pays off." The comments were full of fire emojis and congratulations from people who had no idea what they were actually looking at. Then at a family dinner with aunts and cousins around the table, Kyle stood up and casually told everyone that I had gifted them the tickets because I was such a good sibling. Relatives called me generous. One aunt said she was proud of how close we all were. I sat there and nodded. Then Kyle looked at me from across the table and said, loudly enough for everyone to hear, "She only got them because her boss felt sorry for her anyway." The table laughed. My mother did not correct him. She actually smiled. I picked up my glass of water, took a slow sip and said nothing, because I understood what was happening. They were not just stealing the tickets anymore. They were rewriting the whole story, making themselves the heroes, making me the bitter little sister who could not handle their success. Fine. Let them build the stage. I would let them walk right off the edge of it. At work the following week, my boss called me into his office. His name is Mr. Owens, and he has always been straight with me. He looked at me for a moment and said, "You seem off. Everything okay?" I was embarrassed to explain it, but I did, quietly, quickly, like pulling off a bandage. When I finished, he was silent for a moment. Then he leaned back in his chair and let out a short laugh of disbelief. "Jordan," he said, They stole the tickets tied to a corporate hospitality package. He then explained everything I had only half understood from the email. This was not just 2 seats at a football game. The prize included suite-adjacent access, a corporate lounge, a pre-game field experience, sponsor credential verification, networking with executives and sports industry professionals. I had earned a career opportunity, and my brothers had taken it to post on social media. Mr. Owens was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward. "If you want, we can fix this." Quietly. I did not answer right away. I sat with it, because I knew if I said yes, this was no longer just a personal situation. This had weight, real consequences. I looked at him and nodded. He reached into his desk drawer and slid a second envelope across the table toward me. I picked it up, opened it slowly, and felt everything shift. Inside the envelope was something better than what had been stolen. Because my original ticket credentials were still active and registered in my name, the company worked with their sponsor contact to arrange a separate, upgraded VIP experience through a secured corporate channel. My brothers could still travel. They still had the physical tickets. They could still brag and post and feel like kings. But when they showed up at the premium entrance and tried to access the VIP package, the system would flag a credential mismatch. No matching ID. No registered recipient confirmation. Security would pull them aside. And the more they argued, the worse it would look. I booked my own flight that evening. I said nothing to anyone in the family. The night before I left, Brandon knocked on my bedroom door and walked in without waiting. He looked around the room, spotted my small carry-on bag by the closet, and frowned for half a second. Then he asked, completely casually, if he could borrow my large suitcase since I was not going anywhere. I looked at him. Then I walked to my closet, pulled out the big suitcase, and handed it over with a smile. "Of course," I said. "Take it." He grabbed it without even saying thank you and walked back out. I closed the door behind him and stood in the quiet. Take everything, I thought. I want you comfortable. The family threw them a send-off dinner. An actual send-off dinner. My mother cooked their favorite meal. My aunt and uncle came over. Cousins crowded around the table. My father sat at the head and smiled like his boys were heading off to war as heroes. Kyle stood up before dessert and raised his glass. To opportunities going to the people who actually appreciate them. Everyone cheered. I raised my glass too. I looked right at both of them and said, clearly and warmly, "I really hope this trip gives you exactly what you deserve." Everyone assumed I was being sweet. I was not. After dinner, I slipped upstairs to pack my carry-on. Through the wall, I could hear Kyle and Brandon in Brandon's room, laughing, talking about me. Kyle called me spineless. Brandon said I was too scared to ever fight back. They called me pathetic. I zipped my bag closed. I carried it downstairs quietly, placed it near the back door, and went back to say goodnight to everyone like nothing had changed. I hugged my mother. I told my father I was tired and going to bed early. Then I waited until the house went quiet. At midnight, I picked up my bag, stepped outside into the cold air, called a rideshare, and headed to the airport. I had a boarding pass and a hotel reservation and a VIP wristband in my name. My brothers had a suitcase and a dream that was already unraveling. I landed before they even knew I had left. I checked into a clean, polished hotel under my company reservation. A welcome package was waiting at the front desk with my name on it. I changed into something simple and walked through the hotel lobby feeling something I had not felt in a long time. Still, calm, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I explored the hospitality area, introduced myself to a few people from partner companies, and had dinner at a restaurant I had actually chosen for myself. No one asked me to shrink. No one made me feel like a problem. The next morning, while waiting near the hotel entrance, I learned from the event coordinator that there was a pre-game sponsor event that evening where VIP guests would gather. A media wall, a reception, which meant there was a real chance I would see my brothers. I thought about avoiding it. Took me about 4 seconds to decide against that. I was already in the lobby when I noticed a name on the guest check-in monitor near the front desk. The last name Calloway. 2 rooms. My brothers had arrived. I found a comfortable chair in a quiet corner of the lobby, crossed my legs, and ordered a coffee. Then I waited. I saw them before they saw me. They walked through the revolving doors overdressed and loud, rolling my big suitcase between them, already arguing with each other about something small. Kyle was wearing a brand new jacket with the tags still showing at the collar. Brandon kept checking his phone like he expected someone important to be texting him. They stopped at the front desk and started asking about a lounge wristband. The staff member typed something, frowned, and asked a question they clearly did not like. They started talking faster, louder. I stayed still. Then Brandon looked up from the desk and scanned the lobby. He saw me. The color in his face changed so fast it was almost funny. He grabbed Kyle's arm and pointed. They both walked over quickly, almost tripping over themselves, their confidence completely gone. "What are you doing here?" Kyle demanded. "Work thing," I said simply. Crazy coincidence. They both started talking at once, asking whether there was a registration issue with the tickets, whether I had used anything already, whether there was some kind of system they should know about. I kept my face completely calm. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said, "but I'm sure if everything is in order, you'll be fine." They relaxed just slightly. Brandon nodded. Kyle straightened his jacket. I wished them a good night and walked toward the elevator. Behind me, I heard Brandon say, "See? She doesn't know anything." Game day arrived cold and clear and perfect. I got dressed, had breakfast, and made my way to the stadium through the corporate entrance an hour before the gates opened for general arrivals. I collected my credentials, received my wristband, and walked into the pre-game hospitality area feeling steady. The suite adjacent lounge was warm and well lit. There were professionals everywhere, conversations happening about industries, partnerships, deals. I introduced myself 3 times and exchanged contact information twice. I stood at the window and looked out at the stadium below. Then my phone started buzzing. A text from Kyle. "Call me now." I looked at it, put the phone face down on the table, ordered water. 2 minutes later, a call from Brandon, then another from Kyle, then a text that just said, "Jordan, please." I turned back to the window. About 40 minutes later, a cousin named Petra texted me from back home. She had been following Brandon's social media and noticed all his pregame posts had suddenly disappeared. "Why are your brothers saying someone set them up?" she wrote. I picked up the phone and typed one word back. "Interesting." Then I put it away and watched the teams warm up on the field below. I answered my mother's call at halftime. She did not say hello. She started talking the moment I picked up, her voice sharp and fast and loud. My brothers were stranded outside the premium section. Security had flagged the credential mismatch. They had argued. They had been rude to staff. They had been escorted away from the VIP entrance and warned about the situation. According to my mother, I had set them up out of jealousy. I let her finish. Then I said, as calmly as I could manage, "I let them keep exactly what they stole. They embarrassed themselves." Silence. Then she said something that made even me pause. Apparently, Brandon had been telling his girlfriend's entire family about this trip for weeks. He had described it as a major business recognition event. He had borrowed money for new clothes. He had promised backstage-level access and had posted about it constantly. Kyle owed 2 friends money he had borrowed specifically for this weekend. Their lies had a full audience watching from home. Then my mother lowered her voice. "Do you know how much trouble they're in now?" I stayed quiet for a moment. "Yes," I said. "I do." I ended the call just as the second half kickoff happened on the field below me. I picked up my drink, turned back to the game, and watched. I came home 4 days later quieter than I had ever been. Not sad, not angry, just done. Kyle and Brandon expected a fight. They got nothing. I stopped lending money, stopped covering for them, stopped helping with things they could handle themselves, stopped being the family cushion that made their carelessness comfortable. My mother tried guilt. I listened politely and changed the subject. Brandon tried to laugh it off one evening, calling it a crazy misunderstanding, saying we should all just move on. I nodded and walked to my room. One night, Kyle muttered under his breath, All this over a football game. I turned around and looked at him. No, I said. It was never about the game. It was the first time I let you lose. He had nothing to say to that. I have since moved into my own apartment. I still speak to my family. But something in me is permanently different now, and I think they can feel it. The version of me that could be taken from quietly is gone. Here is what I want you to take from this story. Your hard work belongs to you. Allowing people to take from you repeatedly is not kindness. It is a habit they will never stop repeating until something changes. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop catching people who were never falling. They were just leaning on you on purpose. If this story reached you today, please like this video, drop a comment telling me what you would have done. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe to this channel. You being here means everything.